It's either rip it or get a paper cut, and I'm good.
Ripping, it's probably better than a paper cut.
It is. That's why I just let it tear a little bit. That
Yeah.
way, it's hanging in there, but it's just all the media book I print it off each week, and all the finishes from Texas for every Cup driver. I could reprint a page rather than deal with the paper cut.
Yeah. No, paper cut's no good.
Nope.
Did we or did we not get a early Christmas present? I could not
Oh,
believe when I saw the news. Go ahead. I mean,
that yeah. What was that, Friday?
I think
That was
so.
unexpected.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Friday. Yeah, that when that came out, I'm like, am I seeing this right?
Yeah.
It would have said they're going to make a major announcement. I'm like, oh, here we go. They're going to announce an extension to the dirt race. And then when I saw Bob Hockeris put on there about, no, it's going back to the concrete paved, I'm like, what? I didn't get any chatter on this. This is out of completely left field. And what's good about it, I think everybody was shocked in a good way. Like nobody leaked it. It was like, oh wait, this is. I had to honestly look at the counter. I'm like, this isn't an April Fool's joke, is it?
Yeah,
This
right.
isn't one of those like we're going back to the
We don't
concrete
get
and
good news like this from
no,
NASCAR
like what is this?
scheduling.
Yeah, no, get two on there. So no, that was a welcomed surprise
Awesome.
addition.
I can't believe there was. I do believe there was this guy on YouTube. I think it was the same guy that I think we criticized before for something else, and he was. I don't. This is. I don't think this is good news. And he's talking about instead of doing it the way we did, and he was saying, well, he was taking all the positives about dirt racing, about it was different, it brings in a crowd, and all this other stuff, which is what we said. But the
Yep.
difference is just don't do it at Bristol. That's all we're saying. We're not saying to
Yeah.
cancel. But there's so many different venue possibilities. You don't remove it from like the best track on the circuit. It's just dumb, and I'm glad they did it. But there are still some people who just don't get it, and maybe they will once they do schedule it somewhere else. Because I got to imagine they are right.
I don't think so. I
Really?
don't think they're going to do it
Wow.
next year. I think because the drivers have finally the way that they talked, and they're finally listening. Granted, you don't want to always listen to drivers because if you listen to a driver, they just want single file racing
Oh
patent. They
yeah.
just,
No, we don't want that.
but no, but what they're describing for a cup car on dirt, because dirt you have windshields where a lot of these dirt cars they don't have windshields. So when you have a windshield, where do you expect the mud's going to go? Because let me start over by saying a dirt track to be good has to have moisture, and by moisture, it has to have like a natural, not full mud, but not dirt. It's got to be like a hybrid between,
Okay.
and that puts on the best show. Well, you can't have that with a cup car with a windshield like behind me because the mud when you're racing on it kind of muddies up and it clumps up, and where's it going to go? It's going to land and just stick to the
And why
windshield.
can't they have a windshield wiper?
Well, it would just smear it.
Oh, so
It wouldn't work.
the
Yeah, the
the
windshield
Cup
wiper
car
wouldn't work.
windshield wiper would not work.
Just would not. It would just smear it all over the place. So then the natural response, the cup driver's like, just take the windshield out. Just we don't need it for this.
Okay.
But I think NASCAR is afraid of the liability without a windshield in front of them and debris, something get in there. Because even like midgets or sprint cars or something, they have like bars kind of in there, like a screen that kind of stop from intruding of
So that's why
pieces.
the dirt cars look funky. They've got
Yeah,
that.
they don't have you've got to have it aerodynamically. This car's not aerodynamically made for it. So then, in order to make these cars work, you have to have the track dried out. You have to have more dirt rather than a
Yeah.
moisture in it, so it's not accumulating. But if you have it dried out, it just becomes like what we saw,
Yeah.
kind of just a slick track, and nobody's really sliding like dirt. It's single file, you can't pass, and the more dirt it gets, the more rubber takes into the track, and then it becomes really even more of a one groove. So it just didn't work. This car is not made for it unless you and because then people are like, well, just make a different car, but then you're asking
That's a
teams to
lot of
spend
money for
millions.
one car, for
Yeah,
one race. Yeah.
yeah. So what my takeaway from that too is I like what NASCAR is doing with these 3-year experiments. They're not saying we're never going to go to dirt again. It's like, hey, we ran it 3 times. The viewership and the attendance was better than it was on the concrete last time, which now we got to say, hey, spring race fans, you better go. You better show up because you don't want them to take it away now. That's the whole reason they did it. But so you better go.
Oh,
Buy
I'll
your tickets
definitely
now.
be there because there's not going to be any football, and that's a
Nope.
much better schedule. That's to me,
Yep.
I don't understand. That should be a better scheduling date because there's no
You would
football.
think.
You would think, yeah.
Basketball playoffs are going on, but that's at night, so it's not during the day, so you're not really against anything.
Yeah.
So it's a much better time, but it's, you're asking a lot of money to be spent for these. But what I was going with the 3-year thing, this is the last year of the Coliseum, 24. That's the 3rd year.
Okay.
So then you revisit, did this work? Should we revisit this at a different venue? So I like that. The street race is a 3-year. The Brickyard, the NASCAR race on the road course at Indy, was a 3-year experiment. They haven't announced it yet, but it's the worst kept secret. Like I keep saying, they're going back to the Oval next year. So these little 3-year...
And so you're removing a road course race.
Yeah, you're taking the Indy out and you're adding the Oval back. But you're not adding a road course, you're adding an Oval. And
Any
Bristol,
chance that if the Roval is awful, that they'll switch back?
I think it could be, to be honest. I mean, I need to look at the contract to see, because I've noticed everything's in 3-year increments. So I like that. I think they're not. I like the vision of, let me think elsewhere. Let's think big brain. We'll do it 3 years. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
Or if it's a hybrid, we'll just put a little pin in it and set over here, and we can always revisit it later. So, I think if the Roval stinks, then you've got the Oval there.
I hope so.
It always seems like, and you've seen this a lot in stick and ball sports, you try to do things different, and it always goes back to the way it was. There was nothing wrong with the way it was before we started doing this. And I think we're going to look up, and we're going to be right back to the schedule the way it was a few years ago. It's like, hey, Charlotte wasn't bad with 2 oval dates. Bristol's better with 2 concrete dates. Indy's better with the oval, not the road course. I think, and maybe
we haven't had the Brickyard with the new car.
We haven't. Nope.
And Charlotte's been much better with the new car.
Yep. I think this new car, Keselowski made the point, I think it was on his Twitter a few weeks ago, that this car, prior to this car, we were screaming for more short tracks and road courses. Now with this car, I think we need to do less and more intermediate. Because I've heard even another wild rumor floating around is this next year will be the last year for the street course, and then they're going to go back to Chicagoland Speedway, 1.5 miles, because that race was always pretty good anyway. Just not a lot of people showed up. Now imagine it with this next gen car. Yeah. It could be better. So no, that's.
When do they make the schedule for next year?
It's not out yet. It's supposed to announce here pretty soon.
Oh, soon.
So,
okay.
Yep. So I don't expect a dirt race on that schedule. I just don't, because if you add a dirt race, what are you going to take away? That's the other factor, is what race are you going to take away to add the dirt race? Because I don't see him going an 37th week just to add a dirt race. That doesn't make any sense. I know
the race right now that they could eliminate. That's that
this
one.
No,
well, that's true. But the one in Illinois?
Gateway.
Gateway.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing is horrible.
It's just that track's not made for these cars.
That's bad. See, at least, and we'll get into it with Texas, I have no idea if it's going to happen again, but we had the record-breaking cautions last year, which was just pandemonium on the track. And you know what? Sometimes that's okay. We don't want that, but look at what's been going on this year with like hardly any cautions at a lot of different stops. Imagine if we have that again. I mean, that's going to be just different, which is okay. Being different is okay.
That's one of the things for my 5 things I'm watching, that article that have come out, is the tires. Because last year, once they all did an investigation, what in the world happened? Why were all these tires blowing?
Yeah.
Well, what happened was teams. So Goodyear, maybe a lot of people realize this or don't realize this. They'll send a memo and it'll be, hey, the recommended air pressures for these tires for this race is X amount. It's this. Well, teams push the envelope naturally. They always do. And with the next gen car, there's not a lot of development you can do or areas to work in to gain speed because it's supposed to be spec. And they slap you on the wrist, sometimes rule with the iron fist, other times too, if you really step out of bounds. Tires are one thing you can manipulate a little bit, not in a bad way. And what I mean by that is you can lower the air pressures even more. And if you have a lower air pressure, you're really aggressive. That's going to help your car on the long run speed because the longer you go, the more air pressure builds up. Well, teams are just going way too aggressive doing that. And that's why the tires were blowing. So Goodyear and NASCAR like, well, there's the problem. They had all the teams. Well, what did you run air pressures? What were you doing? And so the teams, i.e. Tyler Reddick last year with RCR, they didn't go aggressive. They weren't in the playoffs. And Richard Childress basically told him, we can't afford a bunch of wrecked race cars and just do what Goodyear says. And that's why they lasted as long as they did.
Okay.
So this year, the tire is the same left side, but the right side is a different tire.
Okay.
That's from the July test that they did there.
Okay.
So we'll see if that's going to be a thing.
Okay.
They did have a test. It was Hamlin, Suarez, and Logano tested there. So,
but again, with the All-Star, when was the All-Star race this year?
May, yeah, it was back in May.
And that was terrible. So,
that was last year. Texas the All-Star race last year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, that was bad. But again, it was limited, so different with laps and stuff. But yeah, so we really don't know. We're not going to know until they get out there. Not even in practice or qualifying. We're not going to know until they race. And who knows? It might not even take long. It might take a stage.
And that's what happened last year. It was these tires were blowing pretty quick. And for these playoff guys, it's intriguing because you don't want to. I expect the Ford guys to kind of play within the box. Fords aren't necessarily fast on these tracks. They've proven that this year. But they could also play within that box and do what Reddick did and have somebody. They have top 10 cars. I don't think they have race-winning speed. However, if Hamlin, Truex, those guys are too aggressive and blow tires, then it's going to hand the win to them. So I think they play within the box. But those other guys, you have to be aggressive to win these races, right? How far do they push that boundary, which is something that we're not going to know until the race. I mean, you don't have a lot of time in practice to really figure this out, what the tire wear is going to be. And it's going to evolve as the race goes or the weekend goes on because they practice and then the Xfinity race is after that. So there's going to be more rubber laid down between your practice and the race on Sunday. So
but we're not going to really know any. And the Xfinity series will tell us nothing about what's going to
happen. No, because it's a different car. Yeah, different car. I mean, even if it's a similar tire, the loading's different than the two cars. It's not going to be the same. So, which is an intriguing thing to watch. Like I said, the Fords, because I'm going to use Logano and Harvick as an example. They just got bounced. They're good at Texas, but they know, and Logano and Harvick both said after Bristol, look, we just didn't have the speed this year. I'm not shocked we were eliminated. We just didn't have the speed. So if you're those teams and you're not fighting for a championship, testing is very few and far between these days. If you do a test, usually it's a Goodyear test like they did here. It's not like a team test. Why wouldn't you treat these final 7 weeks as a glorified 2024 test session? Why would you not come in this week and like, look, it doesn't do us any good whether we win or lose. We're not in the playoffs anymore. We're not going for it. We've got 3 cars, Keselowski, Buescher, and Blaney. Those guys got to go for the playoff, a win or points race. None of the other fleet has to do that. We can all divide and conquer. Let's figure out setups and just – so that's why I'm intriguing to watch Harvick, Logano, these guys that are good there. Do they just punt? Do they just say, "Hey,
that's what he's for Harvick's going to be different." You know, he's
probably just goes for the win.
Yeah,
I think they go completely off strategy.
Yeah,
they could go. I guess, and he's on the flip side. If I were them, I would use Harvick's car, go aggressive because he's got good car control. He's not going to wreck it. Go aggressive with his tire strategy and see if it works.
And it's a test too.
Yep, it's a test, but it's like, hey, let's go the lowest air pressure on his car out the gates.
And if it doesn't work,
if it doesn't work, he pits. And if it does work, hey, Blaney's crew, hey, he ran this low air
Yeah.
pressure, and it worked that whole run. He shot through the gates here. Maybe you guys lower your air pressure for this next pit stop. So I think that's what they'd be dumb not to do that. Not next week at Talladega is a different story because that's a super speedway and that's Ford's best track. But I think for them, yeah, you'd be pretty dumb not to go ahead and look ahead towards 2024 and use Harvick for those situations. He's a team guy. He's going to the booth next year. He wants to win, so why
Is he
not let them
and
play
is he full time next year?
in the booth? He's Fox Sports, yeah, the whole
So he'll be
Fox.
Fox, and who will he be with?
They haven't announced yet, but I'd assume it'd be Boyer.
Okay.
They were teammates with Stuart Haas, so they know each other well. I think it would be best with, especially that everybody's trying to cancel Danica Patrick anyway. So I'm not sure if that'll work out.
Yeah, that's one of those stories that I noticed that you haven't written one yet, but
No, I don't know if I want to touch that one.
yeah, I wouldn't touch it anyway myself until I actually heard more. I'd have to hear more because maybe Danica knows something that we don't know.
I think she does. I think she skated the line. She clearly, I think everybody kind of assumes, but I don't want to speculate on what. But she knows, and I think she just kind of opened the gates without fully opening the gate or the door of what was going on. I think she didn't want to kick him while he was fully down, but she did kick him while he was down. It was a weird time to come out and say that, but I don't know what that does for her Fox future. I don't know if NASCAR is like, hey, I don't know if we want her commentating on these races.
Well,
but
her main business right now is her own channel, correct?
Yeah, and she does a lot of F1 too.
Oh, she does
broadcast. Yeah,
okay.
So it's not gonna hurt her feelings one way or the other.
Not at all.
But she does bring eyeballs because she's Danica and she's a female racer, and people want to hear and see what she has to say. So. But Harvick coming, I think I like Harvick going to the booth anyways, just because he's done it. He's raced this next gen car. He knows what it does. He knows strategy. He's going to be good in the booth. So
I think so too. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about last week, and we got a Bristol night race. It rained, but we were fortunate because it's a short track. So. I'm not sure what happens if it's if we're at Texas, let's say, chances are it might have been a long night. Probably would have been, they probably would have been smart to just, okay, well, we're gonna wait until everything goes, the system passes, and if we start at 9:30, we start at 9:30, knowing there's no rain after that. That's probably what they should do in that situation, but we didn't have to worry about it because it was a short track. And so that was a bonus. We talked about how different it is at Bristol with the new car, and to the extent it continued. It wasn't like the old banging and all that kind of stuff that we really love about Bristol. So, hopefully they'll be able to figure out a way with the short tracks now. What is there? What do you think is a possible solution that when they try to figure out how to make the short track racing better in the off season? What can they do?
The three things I would say is add more horsepower back. Let's give them even more power. You need a smaller tire. The tire's too big because it's not wearing as much and it's gripping the turns. So they're going faster in the turn. So I think if you have a smaller tire, more horsepower, you're going to be slipping and sliding, having to hold on in the turns rather than just. And you can't shift. I think I would ban them from shifting because if that's the other thing that they're doing is if you get the slightest bit loose, you just downshift and it catches you, and then you upshift going on the straightaway.
Shifting?
I wouldn't necessarily ban it, but I would make the gearing as far as like where you can't shift, make the gearing. I mean, I don't know what levels you need. I'm not smart enough or an engineer to know that, but make the gearing to where you just can't shift. It doesn't help you. I think those would be the three easy fixes because it doesn't matter how much downforce you add or take off. These tires are so big, they're just giving you so much more grip in the turns. That's why it looks like they're flying through the turns, is because they're not slowing down as much. And if everybody's going the same speed, how can you pass them?
Yep.
And then if you, like I said, the downshifting, that's your other lifeline. It's like your safety net. So I think that would help tremendously. And if you add the horsepower, you're going quicker on the straightaway, but slower in the turns. And if you're going slower in the turns, you can maybe move somebody. But I just feel like they're going too fast in the turns to even get to somebody's bumper to move them. I just don't think that's even right now. It doesn't even look like a pot. It just looks like they're going too fast to get to somebody to move them. Because if you move them, it's going to be looks like a hellacious wreck, not one of those where you just move them out of the way and you carry on and they can come back in behind you.
Yeah, we just haven't had enough of the old fashioned Bristol where you're just getting all of those really fun issues on the track, which is what you want, and to have the drive, because that's the thing that made it enjoyable to watch, because you knew that certain drivers aren't going to like what the other guy's doing, and then this is going on throughout the entire track, throughout the entire night, and we're just not getting any of that. So
no, and the other thing is when you add that second lane, like the drivers like it because they like to spread out and race around. But what, as weird as it sounds, because you don't really like single file tracks, but at Bristol you kind of need it, because if you could get to somebody's bumper with the changes I said, then if it's a single low groove track like it used to be, you're going to move them out of your way.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I got a quick car. I'm coming.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you just, I'm going to ride the high line and I'll pass it.
That's no fun.
Yeah, we want to see chaos. Not, hey, I'm going to pass them up high and go around them. I want you to move them out of the way.
Yep.
So that's the other, that would be, if you do those fixes and you make that change, I think you got Bristol.
And that's easy. Sounds easy to me.
Yeah. It almost seems too logical. It's like, that sounds too easy.
But yeah. So hopefully they've added the race back. So hopefully that's the next step. And your fantasy team won this week because Denny Hamlin held off my driver, Kyle Larson. So, but Hamlin held on this time, no mistakes, dominated the second half or the last portion of the race, and picked up the win. Because it did look like you just automatically felt, though, and I had to. And I know Larson finished second, but when he started, what did he start?
Who, Larson?
Yeah.
36?
Okay, 36. Yeah. Okay. Soon as that happened, I'm like, come on. How is he still third? How is he still like 5-1 or 6-1? And I'm not saying he's not going to find a way to get through, because this is not the old Bristol. Now, the old Bristol, he's 36. I just find it hard to believe that he's going to be able to get all the way to second. He'd have to encounter so much traffic and so much of the bumping that we're talking about that I just can't imagine. But anyway,
I will say the other theory that I think to help Bristol come back, because he just proved it can be done. He had a car capable of winning.
Yeah.
Can we just stop qualifying and just start in reverse order?
Yeah, right. It didn't matter.
Can we just put the points guys in the back? They're gonna get there anyways.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be a thrilling show to see them get there.
Yeah.
Because that would spice it up,
especially on a short track.
I get them like, well, we don't want to put him at a disadvantage. The dude started last and finished second. Yeah. He had a car capable of winning. That's not why he didn't win the race.
Yeah.
It's hard to pass towards the end. But I think it'd be a better show. But anyways, I digress.
No, but
he got there anyways.
He did, and I still felt it was kind of, because the thing is I just find it hard to believe that we would be looking at stats in a year or two and going, oh, that's right, Kyle Larson won from the 36th position. I mean, it just doesn't compute. So that's why I was like, it's just going to be really hard for him to do it. So really, he did as best as he could, because it did look like it was possible there. That was Larson going to pass Hamlin when he was in second, in that battle for second when Gibbs was leading. So anyway, that's how it went off. There were really, as far as, Logano, obviously, as we talk about the playoffs. So that was the big thing. Truex was kind of, you could just tell Truex was just, let me just drive this thing now and not. And again, a situation where the old Bristol, he could get in trouble more, but I'm just gonna, as long as I don't screw up like he almost did, if I don't do something myself, then I'm gonna be okay now, because Logano's already out, and Bubba Wallace wound up the beneficiary. So we were thinking that somebody, good driver, was gonna end up out, and it turned out to be Logano. And again, he didn't do anything. He just got his, he was, this is why you don't want to be in the back or in the middle to the end, because this is what happens. You get into these situations with other, average to below average drivers.
And I think it further proves what we talked about last week with the old Bristol versus new Bristol with this car and without the practice, and you set your car up for qualifying good and getting stage points. Because if you notice, Truex and Bubba looked pretty good early. They got their stage points. Where were they in the end? They faded, just like we thought they would. Kyle Larson started in the back, probably went a little aggressive. That's why he got a little bit loose in qualifying. But he had a good car under the lights. He started last, and you look up when the lights are on. Kyle Larson's up front going for the win. So that played a role because you can almost tell Logano and Harvick just were off from the get-go.
Oh, Harvick
They didn't
had
qualify
nothing.
well.
Yeah.
They were in the back, and they never gained any ground. Where those guys, hey, let's get our stage points, and that's why they got by. If they don't get those stage points, neither one of them still get by.
Who did Logano? Was it Wallace? Like, if something would have happened, let's say Harvick had a better car,
Yeah.
who would have been knocked out, Wallace or Truex?
I believe true. Gosh, I haven't.
Was it really close to the point where
close.
with like
They're
50 laps to go, they would have known that, hey, every point matters or every position on the track matters, and now we've got ourselves drama as opposed to, well, we're just going to drive around and hopefully not.
Yeah, I think it would have been Truex. It's Truex. Actually, I know it's Truex because he was 5 points up. I think Wallace was 6 or 7.
Okay.
But it also, like I wrote about this week, is regular. I think this also proved that regular season does matter because Truex won the regular season championship.
Sure.
And remember, he was kind of battling Hamlin there for a little bit. And so the regular season champion gets 15 playoff points. So I know we talked about that going into Daytona. He beat Hamlin. Second place gets 10. Let's say Hamlin got him. That's a 5 playoff point difference. Truex isn't into this round because he escaped by 5 points. So him and Harvick would have tied. But then he looked at the tiebreaker, goes to the best finish in that round. That would have actually been Harvick, 11th place at Kansas. So that's the only reason Truex got by. And I also look at it too. People talk about how you have to be flawless in these playoffs. You don't have much wiggle room. But I think if you look at it in the first round, if you had a good regular season, you can have a couple mulligans.
Yes.
Because Truex, he wasn't anything.
Terrible.
I think his best finish was 19th in the first round.
He was bad.
But because those playoff points got him by, and then you look at him now,
he's back up again.
The last guy in, he's back up to the top.
And this is how it should work.
Yeah, it rewards you. So I think the regular season, we talked about this a few times during the regular season, towards the end of it, how the playoff points matter. And it showed.
Yeah.
I mean, it matters. I mean, he went from barely in, like we just said, to he's tied for the top again. Granted, I think as I wrote my things to watch coming up, I've got him on upset alert. I don't necessarily think Truex is out of the clear or in the clear yet.
No, I agree with that because the other thing is, because I even asked you this, was how many non-playoff drivers won during this round or won at Texas, and there were a few.
Yeah, 2 of the last 3, and then Talladega. Out of 8-9 years, well, since 2014 when we've been doing this, only one time has a non-playoff driver won that race, and that was Bubba in that rain-shortened race.
And that's weird.
And then
that's the weird.
It's
thing.
weird that you think that Talladega, all the playoff guys are winning. And then the Roval is mostly playoff guys again. So,
I could see those two being. You can tell me the stats all you want, but Chase Elliott can win the Roval, and anybody can win Talladega. So,
and I looked where Truex. If you scroll up on that a little bit, I've got on the right hand side, you'll see like other stories right there. Truex and Larson on upset alert. I think it's a 0 for 105 is Truex. I did some research on that on drafting tracks.
Okay.
That's counting Talladega, Daytona. So here's Truex this round: 0 for 33 at Texas, 0 for 37 at Talladega, and 0 for 5 on the Roval.
Well, that doesn't look good for Martin Truex Jr. right now.
Nope. And then I actually a little bit down. He's 0 for 64 at Daytona, and he's 0 for 4 at Atlanta on the drafting track. So, he's I don't think it looks good for him if he doesn't win, because those he's got one mulligan. We know he's probably going to use it at Talladega, and Texas isn't, like I wrote right. 3 of his last 4 finishes have been 25th or worse there.
Yeah.
So Talladega, the last 12 finishes, you can see it right there. 17th most points in super speedways, and then you got to go to the Roval with facing a must win almost. The first round you could get away with the mulligans because there's 16 drivers and 4 get eliminated, but this round's 12. You got to be in the top 8 at the end of this one. So I think this is going to be tough. And Larson too. Larson's not guaranteed. As great of a first round he had, we know he's like Truex at Talladega. He's not necessarily great there. And then the Roval, he won his championship year, but he hasn't been great on road courses the last 2 seasons. So Texas is his big one. If he can come out and, just like he did the Southern 500, start with a win, then I think he's in good shape, obviously.
By the way, this is the thing again, which is why they have got to, at some point, not just one race, but they have to change the schedule and the playoffs like all the time because of this situation. I mean, I would not be very happy if I'm Martin Truex Jr. and going, how come I got to get through these 3 at this round every year? I mean, this isn't fair. This isn't, and again, the same thing with Phoenix, as we've talked about before. That's an easy one, but it should be the entire playoffs. You should be always changing maybe at least 1 race per round every year.
Yeah, shuffle them around a little bit. Yeah, because this round of 12 is, granted, like the first round tracks aren't good for Blaney. It's like you put him in a position every year just to get by.
That's it. Blaney's just hoping to do what he did. He's just hoping to just not screw up. And hey, can I finish between like 10th and 15th every race so I can move on to the next round? Yeah.
It's just and then this round you got Truex and Larson, and even Hamlin. Some aren't great at these tracks. Where this fits more, the first round was not good tracks for Ford. This round is a lot better tracks for Ford.
So they have to take advantage.
You could almost say if Fords play Talladega or Texas right, we know what they can do at Talladega. They could go to the Roval on the good side of the cut line and just get by, and then they could have 3 cars to the round of 8, where somebody like Truex, Hamlin, Larson could be on the other side facing must win. So that's why these playoffs are all about, as weird as it sounds, round by round. You can't take a lot of stock into one round.
And that's why these articles like this that you put up, which are gold for handicappers, that's what you have to pay attention to when you're thinking about the futures. You just cannot just look at it like they'll tell you on television on Saturday night after the race. Well, now that Truex is through, man, he's back to being a favorite again. Did you do any homework? Did you see what's coming up for him? I mean, just
and I go through. Yeah, this one goes through the whole thing because if you go down a little bit lower, I got all the Fords in here too, talking about why their path and Blaney and Buescher and Keselowski. I spell it all out right here. There's the Buescher. I got the Fords all grouped together right here, and why this could be a good round for him. Other than Keselowski on the Roval, but again, if he gets by this weekend, I don't see a reason why they can't. So you can't base out the first round. So this article right here will guide you for the whole round of 12 and for your futures, because you might put a bunch of money on Larson or Truex right now thinking, oh, these guys are good. They're back up at the top, but they got to get through here first.
And we always put links in the description, of course, so you can check that out. And if a particular story is not there, obviously you want to go to the website anyway and check out what articles, because there are going to be articles that are going to be available after the show between now and the race on Sunday. Corey LaJoie led 48 laps.
Yeah,
so that was nice.
He looked pretty good early. Yeah, he again, you can almost tell he was set up for the early race time. He qualified up front, led a bunch, and then you look up and he's kind of back towards the back again. But
McDowell had a great night.
Yeah, and I think you got to give kudos to Carson Hocevar. I mean, that's 2 straight weeks this kid's up fronting. And I mean, he had a top 10 going for most of the night. Top 5. At one point, I looked up, I'm like, what am I missing here? When did he pit or something? And I'm like, oh, no, he's legitimately running 5th right now. He legitimately is right there. So
where does he when you have to put him on a talent comparison, who does he, over the past 5 years, where does he go? Where does he rank? What kind of a driver? comparison.
I thought coming in to this was he seemed kind of Todd Gilliland esque, young, immature a little bit. Not saying Gilliland's immature, but overstepped boundaries, crashed a lot, and then Gilliland kind of reeled it in. Front row, granted, is not a
Yeah.
front running team. So I thought Hocevar would kind of take that kind of path. Let's reel it in. Let's not be overly aggressive. Let's
Okay.
not. But now what he's shown in this car, maybe it just suits him. Maybe he's one of those rookies that we just didn't see coming, and he just needed the opportunity because that 42 car last year with Ty Dillon was nowhere, and then Grayson was in that car this year and did nothing in it. And even Josh Berry, when he filled in, wasn't doing much. And you put Hocevar in it, and at a Darlington, the track too tough to tame. The Lady in the Black, it's a tough one for drivers to get right. He gets to the season best finish, and then the Bristol night race of all places, again a playoff race. He's running the top 5 legitimately in a car that was nowhere to be found all year. So I think he's on to something here. The only problem is I think he's, from what I heard, the '77 Spire car that Ty Dillon is in now. I heard he could be going there next year.
So he's what, a couple of years away then before
Yeah,
we
he's
find
only
out?
20. Yeah, he's like 20 or 21. He's really young still. But I think it showed that it really doesn't do him any good to come back to the Truck Series next year because look what he's doing in Cup.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to go straight to Cup and with a
No.
bottom feeder ride
Have a
and
successful
fizzle
season
out.
in Xfinity.
He was on, and maybe he still is. I know Junior Motorsports and him were talking. That 8 car with Junior Motorsports that Josh Berry's in now, who he's going to Stuart Haas, would be a great spot for him.
Okay.
I see what he's doing in Cup. I think he deserves a Cup ride. There's just nowhere big, I feel, for him to go. So Junior Motorsports and Xfinity or Joe Gibbs Racing, if they got some openings over there, would be great spots for him to jump into.
All right. Well, again, we'll talk all about free agency in the NASCAR series when it all ends. But let's just quickly take a look at the futures, because there's now, with another driver or 2 out, Logano and Harvick, you've got the posted futures here. Here are the championship odds. So Hamlin, Larson, Truex, and Byron, they're the favorites now at 4-1, and there's a big gap there.
Oh yeah.
Now somebody's got to tell me, like, maybe is somebody related to Christopher Bell? What is he doing as the first guy after the 4 favorimes? I mean, are they just paying attention to the points and that's all they're paying attention to? I mean, come on. I'm sorry, but Christopher Bell.
I don't know why Reddick wasn't there in that spot. As good as
absolutely.
he has, and he's good at these tracks. I still think Blaney's getting again. They must not have done their homework because they read.
What's he doing? 20-1.
We'll yeah, these are good tracks for him.
Yeah,
I think honestly, Talladega is a great spot for him to win.
Yes, that too.
Texas, I know he's not won at Texas, but we'll get to the picks of why he's a good pick this week.
I'll take all these drivers over Bell.
Yeah, I would too. And if he's 20-1 and gets to the round of 8, and he's got a good shot in that round again, I keep banging that drum. He was second last year in the championship race only because he didn't fight Logano for the win like he could have. That he was a team player. That to go right back there, he very well could win that championship. And he's 20-1 right now.
Yeah, and he's your top money winner now.
Yep.
Top invested driver. So
Harvick, my Harvick thing all year just didn't work out.
That was a bummer. But I mean, he needed to pull out one of those. I mean, he had a couple of chances right out of the gate, and he just couldn't get a break.
Well, you also got to think if he would have won. I'll just go to that Phoenix race, or as I keep saying, he was leading Harrison Burton spin. Say that doesn't happen. That's 5 playoff points for a win. He's in the second round. Because if he wins that race, that's the 5-point differential for even with Truex winning the regular season crown that he's in. So that again, that's the emphasis on winning too. So
yeah, and we'll find out whether or not Bubba Wallace can take advantage he was, I know, or Truex, but Truex, we know where he is. He's the top guy. But Wallace is the one that basically he got kind of lucky that Harvick and Logano did not move forward. So he's really the big beneficiary. And now we'll see whether or not he takes advantage of that. So nobody's expecting it.
No, he's playing. He's the prototypical you hear playing with house money.
Yes.
That's where he's at right now. I don't think anybody expected him to be in this point. So, yeah, especially without having any playoff points, he's at a big disadvantage. And he's Talladega. Everybody keeps saying again that it says in the article. Well, Talladega, everybody thinks he's got a shot, but that win is his only top 10 finish in 11 tries there. So,
yeah.
And road courses we know are not a strong suit of his, so he's got a lot of work to do this round.
Okay, now to viewer comments, and by the way, want to thank both Rogue Bodie and John DeRosa for donating to the channel.
Thank you.
To John, another $2. That's adding up. John, I think that's like his 7th or 8th of the year, and it's like. You need, I don't know if he did it coincidentally or if it was like he needed Rogue Bodie to make the donation for John to kind of go, hey, it's time for me to put another $2 in there. So I appreciate it all, John and Rogue Bodie. Rogue Bodie donated the $5 and then said for the Reddick win and Truex. I don't know. What do you think he said and Truex? Maybe to avoid him?
Could be. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so I don't know. But anyway, Reddick win. That was big, obviously. That was a nice one a couple of weeks ago. And Lana, who we got introduced to last week, came back after we commented on her comment and said, new to NASCAR because of a work fantasy league. Your program helps me decide my pick. I picked Reddick after watching and won Sunday. So again, this was a couple of weeks ago. And
welcome as a fan too. So any questions you might have, don't hesitate to ask. We can help your newfound fandom, and we appreciate it. So,
and Wayne Bilo, my friend passed around the YouTube video at church last week, and the boys from Canada said, "Hey, I'm in first place at another poll, so keep up the great work. Thanks, Wayne." So the church group in Canada having a lot of fun in NASCAR. I guess there are a lot of NASCAR fans in Canada. So
there actually are. I think I'm hearing good things about. I guess I should say when I talked about losing a Roval, losing Indy, but Montreal I heard is good. A good source is coming to the schedule. So.
That's a no-brainer right there. Why not? I mean, how many? I understand going back to some of these other tracks that haven't had NASCAR Cup Series races and stuff, but absolutely. I know they tried Mexico and that was road, but it doesn't matter what you do if it's road or not. But yeah, it's. I think it's just a no-brainer to take advantage of that. Why not? So, all right. Now, let's preview the Texas race. Now, what are they doing with this racetrack again? Because they are going to fix it, aren't they? Or what's going on with this track? I even get confused every time we talk about it.
Right now, it's still the same. They reconfigured it a few years ago, and they've not changed it since. I don't get the impression they necessarily will, but it has cost them a date. They went from 2 annual stops to hosting the All-Star race and the playoff race to now just the playoff race. So
they're supposed to fix it.
Yeah, I don't know if they will. An easy way to fix it, it used to be we talked about just making the short track, but now I think we've seen that that's not necessarily the way to go, but they need to figure something out. I mean, the tires last year wasn't the track's fault. It was more teams pushing the issue, but you just can't have you don't want a bunch of caution crashes every 5 laps, but you also don't want spread out, nobody passing single groove racetrack either. There's
got to be a way Wouldn't you be surprised though if there was I don't think there's any way, right, that we're going to have a complete different race.
No, I think their two options are go back to the way it was. And because Charlotte proved that it's a similar shape to Charlotte. Charlotte was much better the Coke 600. So I think if you're going to do anything, then you could at least go back to the track to the way it used to be and
Which is
model
what?
it after Charlotte, because it's kind of already shaped
Oh, you
like
mean
Charlotte.
when they decide to change it? Okay.
Yeah. Or Atlanta's the other sister track, and they made it a super speedway. But do we need 7 or 8 super speedway races a year? I don't.
No,
I think that's too much. But there's got to be a fine line in the middle, and if it doesn't race like Charlotte, then we know something needs to be done, because I thought Charlotte ran pretty good. And this track is similarly shaped, other than turn one
Charlotte was
being wider. I think I would cautiously optimistic hope it would look a little bit like Charlotte, at least, because I think that was so much better than we've seen at Charlotte in years. So I guess the proof will be in the pudding on Sunday.
We'll find out on Sunday. Okay, so because I know that before, that's why last year I was able to deal with it, because before that it was just terrible. I mean, unwatchable, no passing, awful. So I was, you want to throw 14 plus cautions as a remedy? Okay, better, but yeah, it should be better. And again, the tracks, the 1.5 mile tracks are better, so we should see. I would guess it should be okay. I think we'll have an okay race. We've had 6 different winners the last 6, and 8 of the last 9 winners started in the top 10. Austin Dillon started 21st out of that stretch, the only one outside the top 10. He did that in 2020. 5 of the last 9 started in the top 4, the first 2 rows, including 2 pole sitters. Last year, Reddick won the first year with the new car. He started 4th with the Chevy. Chevy's won 2 out of 3, by the way. And as you mentioned, 2 of the last 3 Texas winners are non-playoff drivers. The one track that we're going to consider the most similar to Texas is going to be Charlotte, which was won by Ryan Blaney, the Coke 600. So let's tap into, because you only had 4 picks, so your strategy has, you're just, I have no problem with this strategy, which is okay. If you're going to win, then you're going to make it an impact. You're gonna.
It's impact time. Yeah, so it's exactly what I want. It's Winning $25 does nothing on the season for me at this point. Now it's like we're just gonna swing for the fence now. And those are the few drivers that I thought. Granted, I wanted to go Logano, Harvick, more towards Blaney, but But I thought, these guys are too good up top. If I'm gonna swing for the fence, I might as well swing for the fence with the heavy guys that I feel like have a legitimate shot at winning. So that's what I did. 4 guys this week.
Only 4. And so that made it a little bit more difficult for us all to pick the same drivers, but we had 2 of them. And that was Byron and Reddick. And you and I actually had one other driver, and that was Kyle Busch. CJ did not take Kyle, but CJ did take a Larson, and you took Larson. So those were your 4: Larson, Byron, Reddick, and Kyle Busch. Now, if you had to pick one, who would it be?
I'd probably.
And I'm not talking
Byron.
about playing these games here. Just you're on your own. Who you putting money down on?
Actually, no. I would say Byron. I'm going to say Larson, just because I know what the intensity they're going to have, because they know what's coming up. And he's been good. Like I said, he won the All-Star race there in 2021. He won the playoff race there in 2021. He's got 3 top 10 finishes his last 5 Texas starts. Second, 20th, 30th, 4th, 1st, 4th on tracks like this season. So a lot of top 4s. Average finishing spot round 1 was 3.1. First, 4th, 2nd. So I just feel like he's riding high momentum-wise right now. He won the first race at Darlington last round. I think it would fit to win the first race this round. Just, like I said, he's got more at stake, because, like a Truex. He is not good at super speedways. He's just not good there. And the Roval and road courses in general being so hit and miss for him. I just feel like he needs more. Where Byron could easily win too. He won a super speedway. He won Atlanta. He just won Watkins Glen, so we know he could get it done on those tracks where Larson's not going to be a favorite at those. So I just feels right with Larson. Hamlin was 4-1 last week and got the win. I just feel like it just felt right. So I'd say he's my number one.
Yeah, between the two favorites, Larson. Actually, we can. Well, I threw them up a little while ago, the odds, so you do have that. But out of those two, Hamlin and Larson, I would take Larson myself because we're not taking
Hamlin.
both.
Yeah, I was shocked he was the odds he was. I granted
4-1. I mean,
yeah,
even as a favorite.
Yeah, because you look at the first round, and yeah, he was really strong. He should have won the 600 if that loose wheel. He had Kansas won, if not for the caution, and then he just won Bristol. So I get it, and he's a 3-time Texas winner. So again, I get it, but if you look at it, he's probably a better fantasy play than anything here. He's only got 2 top 5s in his last 10 Texas starts. That's not great. He has 4 top 11s in his last 6, but just 2 top 5s. So I just don't necessarily trust it. And one of those top 5s, granted, was a win, but that was way back in 2019. I mean, you just look at his finishes, and they're not.
But out of those 5, the last 5, no top 5s, just 15 laps.
Yeah, just it doesn't scream favorite to me, and that's why I went Larson. You like stats? I said it. That says favorite.
Yeah.
This one doesn't. So I don't even like the -155 top 5 with him there. I mean, you got to really go back as I'm looking here since 2011 at this track. He's got 2 top 5 finishes. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's definitely about, hey, he's won 3 times at the track. He's had a win here, and he's the hottest driver in the series.
Yep. That's all they're looking at.
Yeah. That's putting him up here because he has 6 top 10s in his last 9 on the season with 3 runner-ups and 2 wins. So that's the reason why they put him up there. Whereas Larson, as you mentioned, he at least is also able to say, well, I may not go back 9 races like Hamlin, 10 races, but I'm just as good, if not better, in the playoffs so far.
Yeah.
And then throw in the fact that it was, just a couple of years ago, he dominated the Coke 600.
Yep.
And you've mentioned everything else regarding his history at this track. So, yeah, I can see why they're kind of co-favorites, but that's the reason why I agreed. And if I was going to take one, I'd take Larson.
Yeah, he's the easier play to. I mean, I feel like if you just take a blind resume, I mean, even put a blind resume with Reddick, I almost feel like Hamlin and Reddick should switch spots. But you're just going off of probably just with what Hamlin did. But I mean, Reddick just won there last year. He's in the same Toyota, and he's plus 800. He's basically double.
Yeah,
you're getting double what you have.
Absolutely.
For Hamlin. So
yes. That's the reason why. It's. I mean, we've talked about this a lot in the last couple of months. If you're going to put some serious money down, then you got to decide when to do that. And this is a week where it would make sense to do that with Larson.
Yep.
You have nothing to be embarrassed about if he doesn't come through. If you go that route and put big money on Larson. The thing is,
well, plus I weigh to the Fords. So this isn't. They led 30 laps total in the first round. Like, I don't expect them to be dominant. They've all said it's been going on all season now. They're just not good on these types of tracks, speed-wise. So if you take that whole group out and you just leave Chevys and Toyotas up front, and we know Truex is 0 for 33 there, and Hamlin's got the stats I just said, and Bubba's not necessarily good there, and you could punt away a lot of the Chevrolet camp. I mean, I don't expect Austin Dillon or those guys to be battling for wins up front. Well, that leaves you Larson, Byron. It just seems like if you just start
sure
going down the layers, that Granted, they could go aggressive with tire strategies and wreck too, but
Well, that's the thing. See, I got like 14 drivers. And the reason I do is because, again, I'm not saying it's going to be like last year, but I just expect that there's going to be some of that. And if there is, then that means there's going to be a possibility like kind of what we saw last year where, because really, if you were looking at it last year, even though Reddick, who has been very good at the track, he kind of was like the survivor of all the stuff that was going on. It wasn't like he was dominating the race from start to finish. So I can kind of see that again, see a survivor, somebody that, and I decided to throw in some money for some of those long shots because of, okay, well, what does happen if we have some chaos again? So that's the reason. That would be the only thing that would stop me from going all in on one driver, is that don't forget what happened last year. And if something like that happens this year, that's luck. You don't know whose tire's going down, or if a tire goes down, does he crash into somebody? And now that's just, to me, that just says just chill out maybe with the idea of just going all in. Because you didn't go all in. You put a little bit more than a third of your money, but you did not. It wasn't like you put $300 on Larson.
No, I went with a few more to cover the bases because I feel like if something does happen, those other guys could be there to pick up the pieces. I thought out of all the laps last year, and they knew what route not to go. Hey, that was way too aggressive. Let's reel it in a little bit. With that test and the data coming back, I decided, maybe we won't see all that tire issues this year. So maybe one of these front runners. But you also can't ignore the fact, like we talked about a couple times already, 2 of the last 3 winners were non-playoff drivers
for
this race. So that's not a fluke at the end of the day.
That's a trend, and it's going to be a big trend if it continues. So moving on, and let's stick with the odds. So you got Byron at 7-1 next, and yes, you put your second most money on Byron. I put my most money on Byron. So we're on the same page there. 50% of the time at this track, he's in the top 10. He was runner-up a couple years ago. He's led 42 and 55 the last 2 of the last 3 years, so that's good. Actually, the last 2 years. In 3 Xfinity Series races, all top 10s, including a runner-up. Second at the Coke 600, led 91 laps. All of that sounds nice. It could be interesting what could happen. I know it's been a while. It's been a year. But remember what happened last year with Byron and Hamlin. I'm not sure if any of that stuff comes back just because it's the same track. But we'll see. Anyway, I agree with you on Byron. I think he's because he has been a little bit quiet. And to tell you the truth, he had that run. I forget when it was during the season when he was just hot and everything was going his way. And I think it ended at the Coke 600, actually. Ever since then, he's had the 2 wins, but he's kind of had, he's kind of popped up, just kind of, he stole the Atlanta race, or, hey, I didn't expect him to dominate Watkins Glen, so he's kind of been just quietly maintaining business, which is something that you have to do to win a championship, and he's sitting there first, which is something that we didn't know whether he would have it in him as far as becoming a championship driver. And this is going to be a race that is going to determine that. Again, unless luck comes into it. But if he has a good car, nothing goes wrong with his car, and he does not finish in the top 5 or does not lead laps and put himself in a position to win, that's a problem.
Yeah, because if you look, as you said, because I wrote about that in that piece this week, that since that moment, the last 15 races, he's got 3 top 5s. That's it. 2 of them are wins. So it seems like it's either feast or famine out of him. It's you're either going to win or we're going to go outside the top 5. That's not going to cut it. Now you got to start rattling off some top 5s. He's got the potential, as we say. He should finish in the top 5 on Sunday. He should be there.
Absolutely.
And then you look at the intermediate tracks this year, and that's the 1.5-mile type tracks on the season, and his finishes were 1st, 3rd, 1st, 2nd, 8th, 4th, 15th. And the only reason it's 15th there at Kansas was, remember, he spun. that already put him back, and he rebounded to finish 15th. So he should have a car capable. He didn't lead a lap at all in the first round, which is a little bit of a concern. But Hamlin and Larson were just that good. It wasn't like there was a lot of laps to be led.
But look, he didn't have to do anything. He's first in points.
No. Yeah, and he's 7-1, and I feel like he should have just as good of a car as Larson, who's 4-1. So, as I mentioned, same thing. If you start taking the Fords out, the Toyotas you don't think will be there, he should be a benefit.
He has to.
Went 1-2 in 2021 on the same track and the same race. So, I'm not saying it's a must win because he's the top of the point. So this is show me something here. Let's see if you can, even if you don't win, get in the top 5.
Yes.
Show that you can do it.
Because the next 2 races could be nothing for him. It's possible.
Yeah.
So.
And what are the DraftKings? What was his top 5?
Top 5 number?
Yeah.
Top 5 number for Byron. Oh, here it is. -110.
Minus 110. Yeah. So parlay that with Reddick plus 100, and now you're plus money. So definitely a guy that I would double down on.
Okay.
Top 5 and a win there.
And then sticking again with the odds, we have Truex and Reddick at 8-1. Now, I will say, because CJ was the only one to put money on Reddick, but he's not here to say why. CJ a lot of times will just put money on the top drivers. So you and I did not. I will admit I came very close to putting money on him, and that was because of the odds. I was like, wait a second, I get 8-1 now, and it's double of what Larson and Hamlin are. When it just came down to it, was the big 0 at this track. That's what it came down to. Was that he is 8-1. It is still a low number. I've got other drivers at 11, 12, 15. I got Reddick and I got Byron. He just got squeezed out. But if you want to try to, because it wasn't just the 0, of course, it was what happened in the last playoff round and how lucky and fortunate he was. So that combination was like, yeah, all right. Look, it wouldn't be an issue to me and I wouldn't say anything if somebody wanted to bet Martin Truex Jr. in this race, because he has quality stats. The only thing he hasn't done is one. He has quality stats here. He's had 3 runner-ups. He's led a bunch of races, but he's also wrecked the last 2 times he's been here, including last year and he was one of 2 drivers, Harvick was the other, that with less than 100 laps to go was leading the race when a tire went down.
Yep.
Otherwise, maybe Truex does get his first win in Texas.
Yep. I just feel like he's snake bitten there. The last few years, every time at Texas, I've always punted him because remember 2016, 17, 18, 19, he was like the mile-and-a-half king. It didn't matter if you go to Kansas or Vegas or Charlotte. He was winning Kentucky, Chicago, but he wasn't winning on this track. And I'm like, if he hadn't won then, I don't feel like he's going to win now, especially now he's over 33. And then I looked at 29th, 2nd, 25th, and 31st are his last 4 finishes there. And then you look at last round and you see, or even go to Daytona, 24th, 18th, 36th, 19th. I mean, it just doesn't scream
4 straight. Yeah,
I'm going to jump out and win. Not saying he can't,
sure,
because he's a capable driver of doing it. But I also, as we kind of talked about the Danica thing, we didn't want to touch, but he's grieving right now. He's going through a tough time. I mean, I know they weren't together anymore, so that's got to weigh a factor on this thing too. So it just didn't add up to me to want to scream, hey, he's going to jump out and win it. Plus, as I said, Byron's stats on tracks like this season, Truex has 1 top 5 in those same races. That's it. So he's not necessarily at his best on these tracks this year. So that's why I faded him for this round, just because of that.
All right. Well, what about Reddick? Because Reddick does deserve to be 8-1.
He does. Defending race winner, 2 top 2 finishes and 4 tries there. He's been solid intermediate tracks like this. He's 5th, 35th, 2nd, 1st his last 4. 2 top 2s his last 3 on the season. So he deserves to be there. And I say he's a solid plus 235 for a top 3, plus 100 for a top 5. You're definitely entering those categories. The parlay something like that together for him.
I mean, his odds really, as you were saying, yeah, he should definitely. I'm thinking I mean, I understand why Hamlin it would be up there, and he probably should be based on how hot he is and his history at this track. But Reddick should be tied with Byron, I would think.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
And so he swept last year's weekend, correct?
Well, yeah. Well, no.
I thought he won the
Last
Xfinity
year
Series race last
he
year.
did, but that was in May. The Xfinity
Oh, it was a
ran
different
there.
time of the year. Okay.
Yes.
So he won
yes.
both races at Texas and both series, but it wasn't in the same weekend.
Correct.
Okay.
And, I mean, yeah, you look at his Xfinity. I say he's got 2 top 2s and 4 Cup starts.
Yes.
But he's got 3 top 2s in his last 4 Xfinity starts.
Yeah.
There.
So lots of seconds and firsts at
Yes.
Texas for Tyler Reddick, and 5th at the Coke 600, and he's good at Charlotte overall.
Yep.
And he's hot. 4 top 10s in his last 6 with a runner-up and a win. So, yeah, he's a no-brainer. The only thing is that we're not used to seeing Reddick at 8-1 at this time of year in a big race. So how does that go into it? But I decided, you know what, if you're going to do it, you got to give him one last chance. He deserves it.
Yep.
And, he's double the money as well.
It is. I thought, I'm like, is he worth 8-1? I mean, he's never that like this. But then I look at it like, well, if you just take his name off of it and you just look at the stats, yeah, he deserves to be there. In fact, he probably deserves to be higher up. So going to have to roll with him now. I mean, that's why I also like we talked about, he's got a bunch of top 2s there. That plus 230 top 3 is very intriguing to go his way too. That, you at least get a top 3 finish out of it. You don't have to win, just get a top 3. And you look at 3, 4, 5 of his last 7, or 5 of his last 8 starts on that track, combining Xfinity Series, he was in the top 2.
Yes, if you could parlay that one, that's a good one.
Yep. 2 of his last 3 starts on the season in the top 2. So you just got the feeling that, especially because Toyotas are strong on these tracks, and if Truex is over 33 and Christopher Bell doesn't seem to continue to execute, and Ty Gibbs is a rookie, I don't expect him to necessarily win this race. Well, you got to have a Toyota up there. He's the one. So if he could win in a Childress car, he could definitely win in this car there.
Okay, and then as you mentioned Christopher Bell. So, all right, said what I had to say about Bell in the futures, and I stand by that. Here he's 11-1. Now it's better because last week the odds are way too low. What were they, 8-1 last week, something like that?
Yeah,
okay.
It was. Yeah,
and now this is about where we said he should have been last week. Now we're getting at, and he finished 3rd last week, which is something he hasn't done a whole lot of. Yes, of course. Now I'm going to take him. Now is the time for me to take Christopher Bell, and the combination of finishing 3rd. He was strong there. I never really got. I must admit, I never really got the sense he was going to win on Saturday night, though. Even though he was pretty strong, I just didn't. I just still felt, with Denny Hamlin and Larson hanging around, that they were still going to find a way, and they did. Let's keep in mind he only lasted a third of the race last year. Tire goes down. He was running in the top 10. He did not have a good Coke 600, but he did lead 48 laps. And he had quality stages. So he was strong at the Coke 600, but like a lot of the races this year, they just have found ways to get off to good starts and then not finish. But the combination of 2 top 5s out of 4 at Texas in the Cup Series, 3rd place last week, throw in the fact that in the 5 Xfinity Series races, in no particular order, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 6th. And the only time he did not finish strong in an Xfinity Series race, he had an incident on the track from the pole. And the last time he raced at Texas in the Xfinity Series, he actually won it in 2019. So this is obviously a very good track for him. He's coming off his best finish in a long time. And I'm getting odds that he should be. So that's why I finally decided to give him a chance.
Yeah, I struggled to pick him for outright win just because it's like, can they execute to do it? I want to see it. We talked about that. Just let me see it first.
Yep.
But as I go on these top 3, I do think he is a great top 3 pick per se, because if you look at, he's finished 3rd in 2 of the last 3 Texas races. He finished third last week. You look at the Xfinity Series, he finished in the top 3 in 3 of his last 4 Xfinity races. I think that 3 number is key there because if you go that top 3, you could probably build it on this screen here. If you just click on the top 3 plus 330, do a top 3 plus 230 at Reddick and Larson plus 130, and you parlay that. You can have a nice winning right there because I do feel like he's a top 3 type of driver. Yeah, and then click Reddick plus 230, top 3, and then click Larson. And then if you parlay that, that's a heck of a – you don't have to log in, but you can – I think if you scroll down on that other one, there you go. Fortunately, they won't let you parlay it right now. Sometimes you can parlay them. Maybe check in later. But if you can parlay those together, you're in a nice little payday.
That's too bad they're not telling you how much it is. Oh, wait a second. This is oh, no, they're only giving me single. Yeah, they're only showing me what it
Yeah, usually you could parlay. Maybe they just don't have it ready for parlayed yet, but those are definitely 3 good ones.
Well, again, I don't know if they'll – yeah, they're going to have to log in to do it. But anyway. Okay, so there you go. But anyway, that would be the strategy, of course.
Yep.
And just thinking about it, it's, and I'm just guessing, but if you put $10 down on something like this, you know, you're making decent money. So
yeah, because you're plus 330, plus 230, that's 560.
It should be
690. You're basically 7 to 1. You're pretty close to 7.
It should be close to around the $100 range. So
yep.
Okay, so there you go. Meanwhile, next up, let's go with the 12 to 1 shots, Blaney and Busch. Now you took Kyle, and I took both, and so as we go through both of them, now Blaney has 8 top 10s and 4 top 5s out of 4 races, and he's led over 400 laps. That's as good, if not best stats Ryan Blaney has at any track he hasn't won. 4th last year, I believe he won the second stage, and in 6 Xfinity Series races, 1st, 2nd 3 times, 3rd and 8th. So nothing worse than 8th. And he led over 200 laps there. He won his last race there, I believe, in 2018. And in the Cup Series, he's got 8 top 10s in his last 9. And the one race he did not finish in the top 10 during that stretch, he led 45 laps before the car overheated in 2019. 4 top 5s and a runner-up during that stretch. And, most important, was winning the Coke 600. Yep. And doing it as a long shot. And remember, as you just said, Fords, you know, this isn't like their thing. Well, that was the same thing with Charlotte. So if there's one driver, and I would include Logano too, that because of his odds, but if there's that one driver with odds like this, that you would think, okay, well, you know, it's just not a Ford thing, but Blaney proved it could be on any given day. And I just have a feeling. I know he hasn't had a top 5 since the win at the Coke 600, but I just have a feeling that this is the race that he's going to get back into it, like, and put himself on notice, whether he wins or finishes a strong top 5.
Yeah, I agree. He was my 5th pick. I just was trying to make a more impact of winning more money because at 12 to 1, he didn't give wasn't a lot of wiggle room to win the impact for my other 4, but he was number 5. I had him on the list. I just had to delete his 20 or whatever bucks I was throwing his way and divide it up top. But I can see him winning. He's just so good there. I mean, just since 2019, 8th, 7th, 4th, 6th, 4th. And as you said, Xfinity finished worse than 8th. So the lack of non-top 5 since his win doesn't scare me as much, just because sometimes it's track specific,
which it has been.
Yeah, and he just needed to survive the last round. He did exactly that, and I feel like he just needs to survive this race weekend. But he's got a good enough chance to survive and let others mess up, and the C's part, and there he is. I can see that definitely happening. and Kyle, the only reason I took Kyle is just because he's actually really good there too.
Yes.
And he's 5 top 10s his last 6. He won in 2020. The car he's driving right now, it won last year. And out of 32 starts on this track, he's got 4 wins, 14 top 5s, and 18 top 10s. And on intermediate tracks, 7th, 6th, 5th, 11th, 7th lately. So he's pretty good at these tracks. His car is good at there. So it just seemed to me like that won the tiebreaker over Blaney. But I also definitely somebody you're going to want to watch.
I think that this is also a big race for Kyle with the 2 tracks coming up. That could be doom for him because Talladega could be doom for anybody. Yep. And that is, and I think if he's going to seriously try to win a championship, I think this is how he's got to do it. And I'm not just talking top 5. I think he has to win this race. I think he has to put himself on notice to everybody that, yes, I am serious. We are serious about winning a championship. And because the car won last year and because of his history at this track, because he's always been good at Charlotte, there is no excuses for him not to contend for a win this week.
No, one of my hot takes for this round, one of mine for him is he's going to win 2 of the 3 races. And my other one is all 3 Fords are going to get by to the next round. And I feel like who won Talladega this spring? Busch. And you look at Kyle Busch's stats on super speedways this year, and he should have won the Daytona.
Sure.
He won the Daytona 500, just didn't win the Daytona 530. He won Talladega. He was decent in Atlanta. And then he was 7th in the Coke Zero Sugar 400. So we know what he could do on super speedways. Road courses, he's actually been pretty good this year. And that car was good on him last year. And he's even better on the Roval. For whatever reason, he just finishes well there. I think he was 3rd last year. So, Kyle could win multiple races this round. And also have I'm high on the Fords. I'm not going to say they're necessarily going to win Texas or the Roval. But I'm high that all 3 of them can get to this next round just because I think these tracks set up well for them. They don't have to necessarily use their speed. Now, granted, Talladega, they have to capitalize. That's the one that they have circled. You've got to execute that day. But if they execute that day like they have all season on those tracks, and Blaney and Keselowski and Buescher do what we think that they can do at this track, I could see them all advancing, and that's 4 of the 8 spots just right there. That doesn't leave many spots open for your big heavy hitters. So that's why this weekend, as you said, it's going to be key.
And by the way, Ford is a big whopping 350 plus 350 to win this race. That's pretty.
Remember last time they were like that at Richmond? We said that don't overlook these guys, and right. Buescher went out and won.
That was an easy one. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So Keselowski is now 14-1. I think when we did it, he was a little 15 or 16. Yeah. But anyway, he's 14-1, and his partner Buescher 15-1. So, for me, with taking Buescher, and I did also come close. Keselowski was the second guy that I knocked out. Truex was the first. Keselowski was the second. My last decision was, do I take Keselowski or do I use that money to inflate some of the other drivers? And I decided to inflate some of the other drivers. Why? Because just like we said with Truex, the deciding factor on both of them were they had never won at Texas. And now look, I know Buescher's never won at Texas, but Buescher has been a completely different driver than Keselowski this year because he's winning races. And I think everybody's just kind of forgetting Buescher in my mind. He did not have a bad playoff run. I mean, he's still producing. He's still doing really well. And he was a top 10 car last year when they got into a wreck. So, and he was 8th at the Coke 600. And I know he doesn't have great stats here. But to me, it's like a hedge bet. And as far as Keselowski, the fact that he never won is a big issue, but he has pretty decent stats, 12 top 10s in his last 19, 6 top 5s, 2 runner-ups. He led 312 from the pole in 2015 and finished second, 3 top 10s and 3 playoff races. But again, the problem is all those stats came, completely different driver, completely different team and all that kind of stuff. and I just don't know if he's got it to win a race this year.
I was saying I had Blaney, Buescher, Keselowski, Logano. I had them all, and even Harvick, and I was like, that's why I switched and just went all in on the other four. But like you said, I inflated those numbers. Or I had him originally because he's got 4 straight top 10s at Texas, 12 top 10s at 27 starts, and you look at the last round, he was solid. And then same with Buescher. He doesn't have a great history there, but you could say that for most of the tracks.
Oh yeah,
he's not had a great history, but he's thriving this
year. It's like
year.
Chastain and you look at, before last year.
Yeah, and I look at his tracks this year, not similar tracks, but just intermediate. This package in general: 10th, 8th, 12th, 3rd, 27th. And the only reason that 27th was he had a tire go down and he wrecked at the end of Kansas. So he's had better cars on these tracks. He's from Texas. He's got extra emphasis coming here because this is probably the first time he's came to his home state for a cup race. So those are 2 good values. It's just the Fords just don't have it compared to those. So
sure,
you can't. They're not all going to win. You just got to find out which Ford is going to capitalize if the others falter.
But having them both as part of that Ford group is a good thing.
It's a smart play. I feel like Blaney should probably be the leader of that clubhouse, but they're right there with him. Yep. I feel like that's why I said through these guys that Buescher more track specific this season, where Keselowski and Blaney just more this track in general specific. They should thrive this weekend. They should all finish in the top 10. So don't go overly aggressive with tires or anything and risk a wreck. You can't afford a wreck. Go in and play, go down the middle. Reddick did it last year and won. So play that same strategy. Get out of there at the top 10. And then if it's a top 5 or a top 3, it's a bonus on top of that. And then go to the Talladega, which a track you are going to all be favorites on.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked next week if we're talking Logano, Keselowski, Blaney are right at the top.
That's the week for Keselowski. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And that's why they got to survive this weekend. Yeah. They can't afford a 20th or worse. Just go in what you've done best. So they're great plays if you can steal a win out.
Well, again, as we said, we don't know. Maybe there is some chaos on the track. Yeah. And if there's just even 50% of what we had last year, and they're not part of the chaos, that could definitely put them in position to
100%
get a win. All right. And then we have Elliott 16-1, Wallace 18-1, and CJ decided to stick with Elliott. That's his only long shot. And then as far as Wallace, he just doesn't have great stats, which is not a big surprise. 1 top 10 out of 8. Hasn't led and that actually was the very first race he ever raced at Texas. So he hasn't done anything since then. Never led a lap. 25th last year. He was 4th at the Coke 600, so you got to hang your hat on that. But it's just not enough at 18-1. It's the only thing that may be tempting is the 18-1. And then with Elliott, I said it before last week. Forget it. There's no way he's winning 2 races. So if he wins a race, he's going to do it without me. He hasn't had a top 5 in his last 6 races. His car went on fire in this race last year. That was to throw in all the other chaos that was going on. And the thing is, he's actually doing pretty well. He's got top 10s in 5 of his last 6 on the year. But do you really? I don't know. He hasn't done anything close to looking like the old Chase Elliott yet.
No, I don't. This would come back and bite me, but even if he was 50-1, I wouldn't touch him this week. I mean, he's just you got his last top 5 there came in 2016. I mean, you just look at his recent finishes since 2019: 13th, 32nd, 12th, 20th, 7th, 32nd. Just doesn't scream race winner to me. And you look at his teammates, much better. It's like if Hendrick's going to have anybody, hey, we want to win. It's those other 2. Granted, he's in the owner's race. But he's just not – this isn't one of his better tracks. Maybe next week, because that's a year to date since his last win was Talladega. Not here.
Yeah, the next 2. He's got a shot the next couple of weeks, sure.
Yep, this one just doesn't seem like not the week for him.
Chastain is 22-1. Gibbs is 28-1 right now. And Chastain, it's just another pass. I know his odds are good at the race and they're good at the futures, but even last year with his best result was only 13th, 22nd at the Coke 600, doesn't have a good history at Charlotte, doesn't have a good history at Texas. So why would I take Chastain now? Especially, it's not like he's on a hot streak. And Gibbs, you know what? He probably should be more like 50-1. I think he's 28-1 because he had a good run last week. That's really it. And that's just I can't go with that.
No, you're reaching if you go that route. Not worth it.
Logano and Harvick. Now, these are the two interesting long shots as far as they just got knocked out and what's their mood going to be like. But talked about two non-playoff drivers winning the last 3 years. Well, here's your first two definite guys. To follow that trend. So I put money on both of these guys. Logano, 10 top 10s in his last 12 at Texas with 7 top 5s and 2 runner-ups. Second last year. Won a race in 2014. Harvick, 13 top 5s in 38 races, 3 wins, 24 top 10s, by the way. Blew a tire while leading the race with 82 to go last year. And he's also been good at Charlotte, even though he was just 11th at the Coke 600 this year. But you're getting the thing. It's not if these guys are 20-1, 18-1, that's different. I think the only reason why they're 30 and 35-1 are because they're not playoff drivers. So I'm taking advantage of that.
Yeah, because if they're playoff drivers, I bet Logano's 8-1.
He probably, right?
I mean, he's got 10 top 10s his last 12 there, 2 top 5s in his last 3 starts on intermediate tracks. Blaney just won Coke 600. That's his teammate. They got the same. I mean, yeah. And then Harvick, out of the last 6 fall races, he's won 3 of them. This race was his playoff. I mean, this was. You go to Texas in the playoffs, you knew Harvick was coming out of there the top 2 at least. I mean, he had a stretch 6th, 4th, 1st, 2nd, 1st, 8th, 1st, 5th. I mean, that was his playground. So,
and he still wants it. He's the one that's more motivated than Logano, no question. Logano won a championship last year. You can guess, all right, maybe he's not going to be all there. But Harvick, his time is running out. Every race matters.
Yep, and it'd be fitting for him to win. If he's going to, I find it hard to believe he's going to go winless his whole final season.
So just ride him every race until the end of the season. Yep. Well, don't take him in Phoenix, of course, but ride him every race the end of the season.
Well, yeah, if you start breaking it down, Martinsville he's not good at. You know he's not going to win Phoenix. Talladega's he's not strong in super speedways. He's not good at road courses. So there's 4 of the 7 right off the bat. Like he's not going to win at.
This is a big one.
This is a good one. Yep. Plus with the trend of 2 of the last 3. This would follow that trend. And he's 35-1. Or not 35, 28-1. He's 20.
Well, now he's 28-1. Yeah. We had him at 35.
Yeah.
And Logano, we had Logano at 30. Okay, so next up, Bowman. Yeah, I mean he's just completely disappeared. So I don't even need to go down to Bowman saying nothing, and no stats are there for me anyway for me to think that this is going to be a week to go try to take advantage of those odds. But Jones at 55-1 is Suarez also 55-1.
Yeah, he's the steal of the week, 55-1.
And Jones with 7 top 10s out of 11, 3 of those are top 5s. In the Xfinity Series, he has 3 wins out of 6 with a runner-up. And he was 4th twice. That's his Xfinity Series career, leading over 360 laps in Xfinity Series, which is a lot for an Xfinity Series driver. And let's remember, out of the gates at the playoffs, 3rd, 10th, top 10 on Saturday night until he had issues. Otherwise, he's having another top 10.
He's probably your 3rd option of non-playoff driver to win. It just feels like he's right there, and he's in a Chevy. He's not in a Ford, so if the Fords still don't have much, he should in a Chevy. So I really like him for those. I mean, he was 6th last year in this playoff race, and he wasn't in the playoffs. So definitely one to watch.
And then rounding it out, I put a couple of bucks pretty much on these other drivers. Dillon, Stenhouse, McDowell, Briscoe, Cindric, and Haley. And just a quick reasons of why. Haley was 3rd last year and has 5 top 10s and 6 Xfinity Series races. Dillon might be the best out of the group for me. Kyle Busch's teammate, first of all. I think he's a very good fantasy option generally anyway, because if you look at it in his last 7 races at Texas, his average finish is 11.4. He was 9th at the Coke 600, and he's relatively been good at Charlotte since 2017. He's also got a win at Texas. So I think Dillon, when you're getting 150 to 1, is good. Briscoe was 5th last year and has 2 top 5s and a runner-up in 5 Xfinity Series races. Also has a top 5 in Charlotte. Stenhouse and McDowell had their playoff dreams shattered after last week. But if you look at it, Stenhouse was actually leading this race last year, led 23 laps, was 7th at the Coke 600, has been a good driver at Charlotte since 2018. And McDowell, his 11th place finish last year was the best ever result for him at this racetrack. And that, again, was with the new car. He led he actually led the race, by the way, with 110 laps to go. And also had a top 10 in the Coke 600, actually in Charlotte in 2022. So those are the reasons why I'm going with a buck or two. And that is mainly only if there's pandemonium like there was last year.
Chaos.
Okay. Yeah. All of the drivers I just mentioned have something on their resume that says that there's chaos, that maybe 1 out of those 6 can pull a surprise.
Yeah, he never say never, especially with the stat we keep talking about. 2 of the last 3 were won by non-playoff drivers. So,
but Dillon would be the best one for me, though.
Yeah, plus he's won there. Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Okay, so next week, Talladega.
Yeah.
And we still haven't, by the way, it looks like, I know we're going to do the race. Well, we're trying to figure out how to do the live race at Phoenix because you're going to be there.
Yep.
So we just have to figure out where you could be for us to do that.
Yeah.
Because obviously you can't be outside. So,
yeah. Well, yeah. And they, with the weird rules, but we can't. It'd be hard for you to hear me outside, but I couldn't show the track.
Yeah, you can't show. Yeah, you just basically would just be like if you were home, but you're just there. So,
I just said, yeah. You're not allowed to. I think it's 30 seconds or 45 seconds. That's the longest your video can be of the on-track action while the TV cameras. Now, I could post any length of video I want when the race is over, but it's in the TV contract. They don't like.
Oh, and by the way, we could obviously, even if we had to skirt around some issues, we could actually record it and then just play it afterwards, so you know what our reaction was as it was happening. So
you could do that, because there's no copyright or trademarks against that because the race isn't live. So just when it's live, NBC Sports they want you watching that instead of watching us or our. They just stop somebody from walking over to, hey, I'm going to go live on my social media and stick my phone out here.
Sure.
You could watch it here for free.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get why they do it. So
yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously, we wouldn't be showing any of the race, but that's the solution. We would definitely record that. So anyway, we're going to try to see if we can get another race in. We can't do Talladega because where are you for Talladega?
Dirt racing.
Dirt racing.
Out at the Speedway. So
So we'll still try to see if we can fit it in though, because we still have a handful of races to go. So we'll update everybody on that. But again, next week it's Talladega.
Yep, should be a good one. That one
should be fun and very important as always. So don't forget, check the link out so you can go to all those articles that we referenced at racereviewonline.net. And Eric, we will talk again next week.
Yep, talk to you then.
Appreciate it.